Laura, thank you for the introduction. As Laura had mentioned, I am a franchise consultant with FMS Franchise. I also handle all the funding that comes in for any one of our franchisee prospects through the multiple franchisors that we have. And as well, what I try to handle is I want to make sure that every time that a new franchisee prospect for any one of our franchisor clients, that we cover all bases. We're going to be talking about the funding today. I also have access to a national real estate company, a national architect, and build-out company. So try to cover all the bases for the franchisee, everything that they're going to need to be able to open, allowing them to feel a lot more comfortable, and they start to feel support from the franchisee from my first discussion with them. That's the goal, is to make every franchisor the only one that they're going to choose. A lot of times they're looking at multiple franchisors. What's going to distinguish the franchisor oftentimes is the support. That support starts with the funding, which is critical. I don't want them speaking to a franchisor until we know that they can purchase the franchise they're looking to purchase. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen in a minute, and we're going to go through different options for funding that are available to them. A little bit of background on me. I started and ran 4 different companies in my life, in my tenure, raising money for them as well with lenders, all different types of lenders. Up to $30 million we raised for my first company. So I'm familiar with the process, everything from unsecured SBA to institutional investors that could potentially one day purchase the franchisor. So I try to cover all bases, all my background and experience with all these different types of lenders I bring to the folds to help the franchisors capture franchisees and support them from day one. As everyone's probably aware, franchisees sell franchises. So the more support they get from the franchisor from the beginning, the better the conversation is going to be when another prospective franchisee calls them. And they don't really care about Nick. They care about the franchisor. They're going to say, the franchisor helped me get the funding, the real estate, everything else that's involved. They might use my name, they might not. I'm not doing this for a pat on the back with them. I'm doing this to provide a service for my franchisor. Oftentimes, the franchisee is looking at multiple franchisors at the same time. We want them to choose yours. That's the goal. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to share my screen and get to the franchise funding website, which, as Laura mentioned, I'm the president of Franchise Funding Solutions, and we will go through that information as well. Okay. All right. So I'm sure everyone can see the screen here. If anyone can't, let me know. What we're going to talk about are the different types of funding options that are available. This site is being updated. It's going to be updated to the SBA loans are going to be SBA loans and conventional loans as one topic. The unsecured line of credit it's actually going to be unsecured term loans and lines of credit. It's through the same entity or entities. Equipment financing, we're going to incorporate into the unsecured funding as well as the SBA and conventional. This other topic here is going to be 401k rollover, and I'll explain that as well. I'll get into that in more detail as well. So we'll start with the SBA loans. What we look at when I speak to a franchisee, the questions that we do, that I do to qualify them, is to find out the capital that they're going to have to put towards the business. Do they have money to put down for an SBA loan? Typically, they'll need 20% of the money they're going to borrow. If they need $500,000, they need $100,000 in liquid assets that they would contribute. They don't give it to the SBA. They put it towards the business. If they have that, and the SBA sees that they have that, they then allow them, or they then will look at funding the other $400,000 that they require. The way they fund that is they base it on the credit score, credit repayment history, debt to income ratio, all the other pieces of the collateral, such as home equity, could be a 401k. We'll get into that in a minute. But sometimes someone's working for a company and is ready to move on to owning their own business, but they have a 401k for their old company. 401k rollover would be an asset, a liquid asset that the SBA or other conventional lender would look at. And again, I'll discuss the 401k at the end of this conversation. So now, once they see that they can get qualified, now we move them through the process. What I do is I stay with the franchisee prospect from start to finish. I don't leave their side till they get funded. I don't just give them the name of a lender or give the lender their name. I send an email introduction to both the borrower and the lender, explaining what they're looking for, and I'm CC'd on all correspondence, and I track it, and I follow up with the lender, and more importantly, with the borrower, to make sure, once again, that they're getting the support. They see that we care about them enough to make sure they get everything they need to open the franchise. And that's the key to us providing the funding. When FMS does this, with me doing it, we're allowing the franchisor to benefit from the support. They're looking like they support the franchisee prospects from start to finish. And that's the whole goal of this. The SBA is going to require a bunch of different options and a bunch of different parts of the puzzle for the franchisee. They're going to need a business plan. The SBA would provide a business plan template. I will be able to walk through that template with the franchisee prospect if they haven't done one before. They'll want to see that there's a lease in place, or at least a letter of intent from a landlord showing what the rent will be, because that information has to be incorporated into the business plan. They're going to want to see if there's a build out required. They're going to want to see architectural drawings and a commercial contractor quote for the build out cost, to make sure that, again, that all the costs are covered. They want to make sure that not only does the franchisee know what they're doing, but they need to see where this money is going to be going. Then if they, for some reason, if they don't have the 20% to put down, or they don't want to put the 20% down, or they may not have the collateral or want to use their collateral as an asset against the loan, they would go to the unsecured. Before we get to that part, if they do not have the collateral or the credit score to become a franchisee or to get funded, I work with them to identify other options. Other options could be a cosigner, a partner. Look at other assets they may have that they aren't even aware is viable. As an example, the 401k. So I go through all that information with them to identify if the SBA or conventional loan works or would work for them. If not, the unsecured funding is an option. Unsecured term loan would be a 5 to 7 year term loan. Interest rates between 9 and 15%. They were lower before the prime was 8.5, but prime goes up, interest rates are going to go up. They would need to have qualification of no bankruptcy in the last 10 years. They can get up to $500,000 in the 5 to 7 year term loan, and up to $150,000 in an unsecured line of credit. Both the term loan and the line of credit are unsecured, meaning no money needs to be contributed by the borrower and there's no collateral. They want to see that the last 2 tax years, the borrower has claimed $50,000 or more per year in adjusted gross income. That's what they need to have claimed. If they meet those qualifications, they'll be pre-approved in between 2 and 4 days, and could have the money within 2 weeks after that. The unsecured lender says between 9 to 15 days. I say let's just call it a little more, just in case there's a bump in the road. But it's all based on how quickly the borrower gets the information that the lender needs. They'll need credit report, they'll need tax returns. Some people are on the stick, they're quick. Some take a little longer, so that's going to delay when they're going to get their funding, or when they're going to get the potential of the options that they'll have for both the line of credit and the unsecured term loan. They move on to, once they receive the funds, but there's no money down and there's no collateral, the lender charges what's called a success fee. When they successfully get them the funds, they send a separate invoice for 15% of what they received. So if they receive $200,000, they have the $200,000 in their possession, they have access to it. The lender then sends them an invoice for 15% to pay $30,000 for the services of getting them the unsecured funding. That's the fee that they pay. And again, it's only paid after they successfully get the money. There's no prepayment penalty. So if they have a 5-year term loan and they pay it off in 2 years, there's no penalty to do that. The unsecured line of credit is lifetime. It's not a term attached to it, so they can use it as revolving credit for their business if they choose to do that. Happens often. They want to have inventory control or whatever they need to grow and expand their business. Maybe they want a second territory and they move forward in that regard. There is an option that the borrower has to do a combination of the unsecured loan and the SBA. I have a few of those going on right now, where they don't have the down payment for the SBA. The example of $500,000, they don't have the $100,000 to put down, but they like the SBA loan more than they want everything through unsecured. They want to, for whatever reason, they have the cash, they have the collateral, and they want to utilize that. So they can get the funding from the unsecured for the cash they need for the down payment for the SBA. Then they can use the SBA loan moving forward. If that is the case, the SBA requires them to have the funds in their possession for 3 months and a day, so 91 days. After 91 days, the SBA will then say, okay, those funds are yours. You can use them to fund the business, and we could fund you the balance based on that $100,000 you received in the unsecured line of credit or unsecured term loan. My SBA lender and unsecured lenders work together, so they're both aware of what happens. It happens all the time, and then they move forward that way. And again, SBA is going to take 6 to 12 weeks to get funding typically, once again, based on the speed that the borrower sends the information and business plan and everything else back to the SBA. Unsecured funding is 2 to 4 days pre-approval, money within 2 weeks after that. The third option that we're going to talk about that's not here, the equipment financing is basically covered under both the unsecured and the SBA. My SBA lenders will fund the equipment also. Even if it's a food truck, if it's part of the business endeavor, they can fund it. You could get separate equipment funding and financing if you wanted to. Typically, the franchisor doesn't necessarily need that. I'm sorry, the franchisee doesn't necessarily need that. They need the funding to get the whole picture. The FDD has startup costs of $250 to $600. They need $250 to $600 to cover everything, including the equipment, including the truck or van or whatever it is that they may need. So what we look at now as another funding option is the 401k rollover. Most people don't realize that even though their 401k is, in quotes, untouchable until they're 59 and a half, if they roll it into a new viable corporation entity or corporate entity, those funds are now liquid assets of that entity. So the example I always give my borrower is, if you work for Verizon and now you're going to AT&T, when you leave Verizon, they ask you what you want to do with your 401k, and you want to move it to AT&T. The 401k administrator for both AT&T and Verizon coordinate to have the funds moved over, and now you work with AT&T and you contribute to your own 401k. Same thing would happen if they started a new franchise. I tell them that I'm not their accountant or their attorney. I tell them, although I have a Series 6 securities license, I'm not trying to be your broker. I'm just telling you what these people are going to say to you. Your accountant's going to tell you the entity you need to form to accept the 401k rollover. If you have that entity formed, you can now work for your new franchise that you own, contribute to your own 401k, and your company that you created can match it. So you can continue to grow your 401k. If you have $200,000 in your 401k, instead of paying the penalties and taxes, which you have never paid, that rolls in penalty and tax free. You pay a 401k transfer fee of between $400 and $4,500, $4,000 and $4,500. 401k administrators would then be put in place to administer your 401k and allow you to do whatever you legally can in your state and with the entity, to have other employees also contribute to the 401k in your company. And those funds can be allocated any way the administrator sees fit, as long as it's legal. Meaning, they can fund the new business. The new business can be the new business you just started, the new franchise you just bought. If you have a loss right now, if your 401k is less than it was 8-9 months ago, which is probably the case, you wouldn't really want to liquidate it. And I say again, I'm not giving you advice. We're just talking, just giving you the option that you have. You can use the 401k that you just rolled over as a liquid asset, liquid collateral against the loan. So if you chose an SBA loan and they want to see $400,000 in collateral, $200,000 of it could be that liquid 401k in your new account, which is, or can help you get the funding rather than just using your own collateral. The unsecured wouldn't need any collateral, 401k wouldn't matter, but you could use the 401k as a portion of the funds that you need for the funding of your business. So all this information and all these discussions I have with the prospect before they move forward to having a conversation with you, the franchisors. If this was my franchisor and my prospect, I would have the application back first. I would send the FDD, do the Zoom FDD review call, get all the notes taken to have the introductory call with the franchisor. My goal with this, and FMS's goal with this, is to make sure that when the franchisor gets engaged with a franchisee prospect, the prospect is able to move forward if the franchisor approves and if the franchisee wants to. We don't need to take time out of the franchisor's day having an hour introductory call with someone that has no money and no access to the money. I want to get all that taken care of before. So now when you are brought a prospect or brought a introductory call, it's done with someone that's viable, that's ready to move forward. My lenders love that I do this. I do their work for them in advance. They don't charge the borrower any more money because FMS is involved or because I'm involved. They're just happy to get my people to them because they know that I've taken these steps to pre-qualify on paper. If someone's not honest with me, there's nothing I can do about that. But when they speak with the lender and they get that information, the lender's going to see whatever they didn't tell me. Sometimes people don't know their credit score or they think that it's higher. So we work through all that. I try to have them do all the work that they need to do pre-lender discussion beforehand, so we don't have to have them stall or get frustrated or bow out. That's what this whole process, again, is designed to do. It's designed to get this moving forward, get the franchisee fully supported with every aspect of it. As I mentioned before, during this discussion, I'm going to have a conversation with them also that I can help them with real estate if they need to find a location. The question that comes up as frequent as funding is, will the franchisor help me with the location? Some franchisors help directly find the location. Others will approve the location. So what I tell the franchisee prospect is, we can talk about real estate. I'll find out from the franchisor, or I may already have it, the specifications of the location that they need, the size, if it's a restaurant, how big is the hood, power, all these different pieces that the real estate can now go out and find, hopefully a second generation location, so the startup cost is less. Then I talk about the architecture and the build out, where I have a relationship with those companies as well to do build out and architecture all over the country. Doesn't really matter where they're located. They have feet on the ground in every city and state. They can find the right people to do the work, and they do it effectively. And typically below budget, that's their goal, and quicker than they need it. So if there's a 6-month free rent, they want to get everything done in 4 months to give the franchisee the option and the ability to have revenue coming in before they have to pay rent. So that covers the 3 types of options and funding options. If there are or is a specific case that is different for a different franchisee, sometimes they may want to buy a building. They may want to buy the real estate that they're going to operate out of. My lenders could fund that as well. They could fund the whole thing. They could start ground up construction if they chose to. They could have a piece of land that they own or that they're buying that they could use as collateral, and my lenders could fund the build out of whatever they're going to build on it. I'm working with someone right now on a $36 million deal doing that. So there's really no limit to the amount of funding that can be available to the right franchisee prospect. Most of the time, they're looking for between $150,000 and $500,000. I say that's pretty typical. Some are more. The unsecured funding is up to $500,000, and a term loan up to $150 line of credit. That covers most of them if they don't want to choose the SBA or conventional route, or don't have the collateral or assets available to secure that loan. So what I want to do now is I want to open it up to questions. Anyone having any questions about anything that I talked about or anything that I didn't talk about?
Hey Nick, what's going on? Alex here.
Hey, Alex.
What's up, man? So I have a person that is interested in investing in a franchise. She only has $30,000 in her savings. So she's probably gonna need about, I don't know, 150, 200,000. Is she the right prospect to have or no?
Well, if her credit score and her asset, everything, not assets, if the credit score and debt to income ratio and credit history is viable, she's the perfect person for unsecured.
She
I
doesn't have she doesn't have any collateral. Like she
That's
doesn't
fine. She doesn't need any collateral at all. The unsecured requires no collateral and no money down. They look at your credit score, 680 or above in all three reporting agencies, no bankruptcy in the last 10 years, and the last 2 years of tax returns, adjusted gross income of $50,000 or more per year. They don't even care if you're working now. They don't even ask you. They just want to see what the last 2 years showed. They're looking at your repayment history over the course of you having credit. If it was good, they'll pre-approve you for that. That is the type of person that I believe is a perfect candidate. I'm, again, back to my Series 6. I believe in positive leverage. I believe in, if you can find a lender that'll take 100% of the risk, let them take it. Pay the interest. Apply your money somewhere else. The $30,000 you just mentioned is a nice little cushion. Taking that all out, now she's nervous. Well, if she's not nervous, she should be nervous. You know, you don't want to leave yourself with nothing. Let the lenders take the risk. If she had more cash and had more collateral, then we could discuss SBA or something else. But I think she would be an excellent candidate for the unsecured funding.
What's the interest rate and the
Interest
term?
rate for the unsecured is 9 to 15% depending on her specific situation. It used to be like 5.89 to 15, but because prime is 8.5, it's 9. I tell them 9. I don't want to give them false expectation.
It wouldn't be considered as personal loan, right? It'll be considered as like commercial loan.
No, it's a personal loan. They're basing it on her personal repayment history. I can transition someone from a personal loan to a business loan. That would happen after their entity is formed. We would be able to utilize their EIN number as the entity or as the borrower. So now they're personally not attached to it, but it takes some time to do that. A new LLC, as an example, is going to start out with no business credit because they haven't done anything. So we would coach them, instruct them to get a business credit card using the EIN number. Start utilizing that card, pay it off on time, pay it off early, don't be late. It'll build your business credit. And then you'll be able to roll your personal credit into the business credit. Now you're personally not responsible for anything. The business is taking 100% of the blame. The unsecured funding, you're not personally responsible. Well, I shouldn't say that. You're personally responsible, but there's no collateral. None of your assets are held in lieu of you making the payment. Like the SBA, they're going to want home equity is their favorite. You want a $500,000 loan from the SBA, they want home equity. They want to know that you have a home that has equity in it that you're going to pledge. If your business can't pay it back, the home equity will pay it back.
Got it. Okay. And from your experience, what would they qualify for? Having let's say 700 credit.
Oh, the credit score, the higher the score, the better, of course, right? But then they're going to look at debt to income ratio. If their debt to income ratio is 130%, they're not going to qualify for anything. If they have 35 inquiries in the last 6 weeks, they're not going to qualify. They look at all these pieces of their credit to determine how strong of a candidate they are. They're not looking at if they have a high income and if their adjusted gross income is high, that's helpful. It helps the unsecured lender believe that they're going to be able to pay back the loan regardless of the business being successful, which at the end of the day, every lender wants their money back. It's sad to say they really don't care if your business is successful or not. They want it to be successful, but what they want more than that is their money back plus interest. And that's what they're looking for. But it's hard to say what they're going to qualify for and how much. Typically with my unsecured lenders, they will say you're going to qualify for 75 to 120,000 in a term loan, between 50 and 80,000 in unsecured line of credit. The last 12 to 13 of those that I've done, people have gotten more than they were pre-qualified for. My guys like to under promise and over deliver. So that's always good. Now you don't have to take it. If you only need 150 and you're pre-qualified for 250, just take 150. Or take 150 plus the fee, take 180. So you can get, 190. So you can pay the 15% fee out of the money they give you and not have to dip into your pocket at all.
So the fee's 15 points. Gotcha.
15% of whatever amount of money you receive. And it's not taken out of the money. You get a separate invoice. So you have the money in your possession. They just don't pull it out. They send you an invoice to pay it. So it's your money, you have it, and then you pay it. If you have cash and you want to pay with your own cash, you can do that too. You can do whatever you want.
Got it.
Anybody else have a question or a scenario?
Yes, please.
What's
I
the
have a
max?
question.
Okay.
Is this funding available outside of America?
Not well. I have lenders that are in Canada because I have Canadian franchisors and franchisees. If someone's coming from a country that's not a U.S. citizen or doesn't have any real estate or assets in the U.S., they're not going to be able to get funding.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, please.
Okay, good. No, I wanted to make sure that I answered it. I tried to make it short because that's a common question. I have people coming from South America or India or whatever that are not U.S. citizens that have no asset here. The lenders need to see that you have either a visa, an E2, something that shows that you are able to own and operate a business in the U.S. and authorized to do so. If they have that, I have those types of lenders. But normally they would want to see real estate, or what they're going to need is a partner, someone that's a partner with them that is a U.S. citizen or has assets in the U.S. a co-signer. So that's how we get around them not being a U.S. citizen.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Nick, is there a limit on the unsecured or secured funding, like as to the amount available? I know you said you had dealt with somebody who went up to like a $30+ million opportunity.
Right. The unsecured funding, both the unsecured term loan, the 5 to 7 year term loan, that has a maximum of 500,000. Unsecured line of credit is 150,000. So if you qualify to get both at maximum, you can get 650,000. The SBA normally goes to 5 million. I have someone that can do 10 million. Conventional loans can go higher. The $36 million deal I was talking about is an institutional investor, someone that invests in much larger amounts than the SBA will invest in. So there really isn't a cap. I mean, I have a institutional investor that can go up to 3 billion. So there really isn't a cap. It depends on the borrower and what they're trying to do. Normally, for most franchisees, we're looking at the SBA or unsecured. The $36 million deal I mentioned is a franchisee that's going to buy into a franchise, but owns a piece of land and is going to build a huge complex on it. And that's why he needs that $36 million. Typically, that doesn't happen. But I have access to lenders who can do that.
And are there any type of affiliate, like say we put an affiliate link through our sites? Is there any affiliate programs that you offer as far as channeling funding, whether they go with us or go with a different franchise, for example? We still are able to kind of be a conduit for business. Is that a possibility through your business program or no?
Absolutely. If you see, they can go to the franchise funding solution site that I'm sharing with you right now and get information, and it'll come to me. I can get them whatever they want. It doesn't matter. They don't have to just be franchisees. It could be a franchisor that wants to open up 5 more locations or buy a building or whatever. So yes, this works with anyone looking for any type of funding.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Nick, this is George Ketterer. Thanks so much for the presentation. This has actually been hugely helpful. Sorry if you already covered this, but could you just, what was the loan rate for the SBA loans? Obviously, you said it varies based on credit score and debt to income ratio, but is there sort of an average for those?
Normally, the SBA is going to start at 1.25 points above prime, and go up from there. That's normal. Can you get it for less than that? Depending on the borrower, sometimes you can. But as a general term, a general statement, if a borrower asked me, what should I expect to pay? I would say the same thing. I would say you expect to pay 9 to 15% from the SBA based on your particular circumstance. Typically, it's 1.25 over prime. So if prime is 8.5 today, you're looking at 9.75. Typically, can you get it for less? Yes. Often, no.
Understood. And if they're kind of falling into the same category for a franchisee, what would you say is then the benefit of the collateral with an SBA relative to an unsecured loan if they're getting them for about the same?
Well, I would give them my personal feeling, and what I said before. My personal feeling is if you can get a lender to take 100% of the risk, have them take it.
Sure.
My feeling. Now, you're going to pay a little more interest, a little more percentage of interest for the unsecured, simply because there's no security. But it's not the difference between 8 and 15, right? Maybe instead of 8, you're paying 9.25, or 9.5, or 8.75. So it's not a huge difference. So what I would tell them, what I always do is I start with one. I speak to the prospect and determine which one could be better for them. And that's the one I go with. I don't want to send them to 2 different lenders in 2 different categories. That's not fair to them. It's not fair to my lenders. I tell them it's like buying a house. If you go see 10 houses in one day, you're going to forget which one has a good kitchen. So I want you to tell me what you're looking for, and I'll tell you which one is best. If you agree, then I'll now send you an email introduction to the lender that I choose. And I stay with them the whole time. And if during the process they want to change, we can do that. If they say, okay, this is great, but I don't really want to put down, I don't have the collateral that I thought I had for the SBA, or I'm not going to be able to get as much from the SBA because I don't have the income, or whatever the reason might be. Sometimes they think that their credit score is 700 and they go unsecured and their credit score is 500 because there's a bill on there from 5 years ago from a doctor that they didn't pay for $100. Right. So it's things that they don't know that they find out. They contact me, and my lenders contact me and say, here's the situation. This is where we're at. We have an issue and a concern. We need to address it.
Understood. Okay. Thanks for that.
Sure. I mean, I want to make the point again. The reason that, I mean, I took this upon myself to do the funding. I spoke to Chris Connor about it and saying, you know what, we're doing this anyway, but we're not doing it to a point where we're benefiting the franchisor because we're not engaged with the lender. What this is doing is it's making the franchisor look like what they are needing to look like, that they support the franchisee from day one. Most franchisors aren't doing everything that FMS and that I'm doing. They're just not. They're not working with the funding. They're not handling the sales for a lot of franchisors. They're not working with the real estate, the build out, the architecture. I want someone that knows nothing about this, that's working for a corporation for 25 years, but wants to get out and be on their own. A lot of times, all they've ever received was a mortgage. Now, in relation to a business loan, a mortgage is easy. You find the property, you want to buy it, they appraise it, you put down money towards the property, they give you the mortgage. If you don't pay the mortgage, they take your house. It's not the same in a business. They don't want the business. They don't want the pizza restaurant. They want to know that you're going to pay them back whether the pizza restaurant is successful or not. That's really the goal. It's really what they want. So we want the franchisor that we represent to look like the hero, and that starts day one.
Nick, I have a question if you'd allow me.
Sure.
Nadal Saleh, I'm a franchisor and I'm in the coffee business. Can franchisor tell his clients or franchisees that the franchisor or the franchise is SBA qualified?
That doesn't matter anymore, and that's probably not the right way to say it. The SBA no longer has the requirement to be registered with the SBA to get funding. You don't need to be SBA qualified anymore. That's good for the franchisor, and the franchisee trying to get the funding is bad because now the bank has to do the due diligence that the SBA was doing in the past. So what you could tell them is that working with us, with you as a franchisor, we have access to help you with the funding. Depending on your circumstances, we'll determine what's best for you. And when you speak with our franchise director, Nick, he'll be able to go through that with you. That's what you can say. The SBA qualification is no longer a requirement for funding.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have a question?
I have something in my mind, if you could, and maybe I missed some of the presentation, but I just want to know, your entity is part of FMS, or is it FMS that has that program?
It's what happened was it's FMS that we created Franchise Funding Solutions. I'm the president of Franchise Funding Solutions. I run it. It's under the guidance of FMS. I am part of FMS. I'm a franchise consultant. I handle franchise sales, franchise development, and I took it upon myself to work with FMS on the funding side, so we can offer these services to your prospects. So this is a part of FMS 100%. I'm not separate. Everything I do is from FMS. That's the funding, the real estate, the architect, the build out. All those pieces of the pie come through FMS. That's all related to FMS. It's more of the services that we offer our franchisors, not just the franchise development, not just the sales, the funding, the architecture, the build out, the guidance, the tutelage to the franchisee to move them forward. So it's all FMS.
I see. Thank you. And also your entity is open to deals beyond franchising, like any other SBA deals that we have. My daytime trade, or all my life, I've been a business broker, and we deal with mainly gas stations throughout the US.
Right.
We are in 30 states. That's really who I am before I became a franchisor.
Okay.
So would you look at anything else besides franchises?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No problem at all. It happens often. A lot of times the franchisor wants to buy a building for himself, or they want to buy land, or they want to do something else, or like I was talking about, that $36 million deal. It's not for a franchise. It's for funding to build an entity building complex on property. So yes, absolutely open. So if you said you wanted to find a gas station location, you want to find an old gas station, second generation, you tell me what you're looking for, where you're looking for it, and my real estate can find it anywhere, and my lenders can fund you for whatever you want. My lenders are not only franchise. They don't care what you're doing with the money. As long as you qualify for the funding, they're going to give it to you. SBA is going to want to see your business plan, but it could be a business plan for something entirely unrelated to a franchise.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Nick, I did have a question. This is Bill with Paradise Smoothie Juice Bar. This is very enlightening information for me. So at this juncture, we're a smoothie bar, so we're kind of small. We have people that ask questions. Hey, can you guys assist us with funding? Hey, can you guys assist us with location identification, that kind of thing, and potentially negotiating terms to better strengthen our capacity to get lease locations or what have you. Is it my understanding that your services also strengthen our ability to say to that potential franchisee, yes, we can assist you in that space?
That's exactly correct. That's entirely the whole purpose of what we do. Is I want you to be able to say yes to all those. I don't want my answer to any prospect to be no, other than, can I negotiate the franchise fee? No. I mean, other than that, I want them to say, can you help them with funding? Yes. How about real estate? Yes. How about build out? Yes. Now they say, wow, this juice bar is great. This is the one I'm going to choose. There's 5 I'm looking at, but none of them do this. These guys are going to support me. So absolutely, your answer to them is, yes, we can help you with the funding. Yes, we can help you with the real estate. Your answer as a franchisor is, yes, we can, because you're the one they're going to. I'm the vehicle you're using and I'm helping them, but it's your franchise that I'm doing it for. That's what we want. We want them to keep your name in the front of their brain. If they have multiple businesses they're looking at, we want them to choose you because they're getting what every franchisee needs, which is support.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is very, very enlightening for sure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And can I ask something?
Yes.
And I'll make it quick. You mentioned something that you will help the client not only with securing the funds, but also with the process of him not picking the location, but can you elaborate on that part? Is it something you do extra that we can tell the client that FMS not only going to give you the money, but they will walk you through the process? Is it reasonable to say that?
Yes, it is, and the reason it's reasonable is when my real estate company that I work with, they negotiate the lease and the terms. My architects will do the build out. I mean, they'll do the architecture. Build out will do the build out. They'll go to general contractors in whatever territory your prospect is in. They'll find 3 of them, and they'll get 3 bids for the build out. So yes, their hand will be held the entire process, start to finish, by you, by the franchisor. That you have every opportunity to say that. I say that. I tell them the franchisor cares enough about you. I handle everything for you. Whatever you need, we can help you with. I can do everything but give you the money. I can't give you the loan, but my lenders can if you qualify. So yes, because a lot of people they don't know where to start. Something simple like if they're looking for a location, they don't know who to go to. Maybe they know some residential realtors, but they may not know commercial, and if they do, they may not be the best commercial in that area. My guys are. We find the best commercial real estate agents in the territory they're looking at. The reason we do that is because those realtors will normally know the landlords, and they'll know not only what's available, but what might be coming available. They may know of a restaurant that the lease is going to be over and they're going to relocate in 6 months or 3 months or whatever. And if your franchisee is looking for a restaurant, well, now their startup cost is just dramatically reduced because a lot of the equipment that they need is already there. So yes, it's start to finish. We want to support every aspect of them becoming a franchisee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Nick. Shauna from Barbados from Delicious Streets franchise.
Hi, Shauna. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. What I'm asking for franchisors like myself that are coming to the US that have been registered in the state and stuff, some of the states and stuff, how would it work for me coming in, looking at getting funding in the US, seeing that I'm, now starting? How would that process work for me, for franchisors like myself?
So if are you talking about Shauna, you're coming from Barbados and you are not a US citizen? And okay. So what the lenders are going to require is that either you have real estate that you own here, or you have a partner or a co-signer that does. And they need to be normally 50-50. They don't want to have someone with 1% of your business they're not going to look at them as a true partner or co-signer. So there are other visas that you could get that would allow you to own a business in the US as a non-US citizen and operate that business. You'll pay taxes in the US. You'll be able to hire people in the US. You'll run the business as a US company. As time goes on, you're going to be building up credit as a US business because your business credit is going to be impacted by your success and by you successfully paying bills back that you incur during your time here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question?
To have franchisees, Nick, contact you, use the number on the screen here, on your screen here, 386 number, or
yes.
is there a certain type of introduction that you would like to have?
No, normally, what I do with FMS, any FMS rep that has a prospect that wants funding sends me an email. The email will say, John Doe is looking for funding for XYZ franchise. Here's the FDD, here's his phone number, and here's his email. Then I contact them, I call them, talk to them, and get them the information they need, and then I start the process from there. If someone was going to want information randomly, they can go to this website and they could go to contact us and they can click on that and they can send an email or they can have my name and number there as well. There's no problem with them calling me directly. They would call me, leave a voicemail if they don't get me, and then I'll reach back out and move it forward. What I do once I get it, I enter them into our CRM. So now I have all their information and I track it. And I make sure that they get followed up on by me and by the lender. My lenders typically contact the people back the same day, sometimes the next day. Usually it's the same day. Unsecured lender I use pretty much within an hour of contacting somebody when I send them over. So it's very efficient.
Okay, that's great. And you mentioned that you have the ability to find locations for anywhere in the country.
Yes. Anywhere in the country.
You were
What I would do,
services or use a certain company to do it, because I've been thinking about talking to a national provider that I can recommend to my franchisees anywhere in the country, Minnesota, Florida, Ohio, to help them.
yeah, that's exactly what I have. I have a national real estate company that can find a location for any franchisee anywhere in the country. What they would do is they would talk to you with me, we'd have a call, and they go through some criteria. What's the size of your location? Does it need to be in a big box? You know, does it need to have a big anchor? If it's a restaurant, do you have a hood? How big is the hood? What kind of seating do you need? What equipment do you need? So now they know what they're looking for. And then they take that template and they find the commercial realtor in the territory that your franchisee prospect is in, and they move it forward. Now, we only engage with the real estate after they become a franchisee. Okay, so I tell them, I have a national real estate company that'll work with you as soon as you're a franchisee. The reason we wait till they're an actual franchisee is because it's virtually impossible for a realtor to negotiate with a landlord with someone that's not a client yet. So until the franchisee is actually signed, they're not really a client. Now, that doesn't mean the real estate can't look around, but you're not going to get the real effect that you need to get. So when they find a location, they want you in there as quickly as possible. So they want to start negotiating when they first contact the landlord. And that's what they do. They negotiate. They're going to negotiate the price per square foot. They're going to negotiate the tenant improvement. They're going to negotiate the free rent. All these pieces they're going to negotiate. They handle all of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Guys, can I ask a random question to some of you guys that have one or more locations? Basically, like, is there like a specific formula you guys use when you guys are budgeting for rent, whether it's per square foot or whether it's like the dollar amount? What's your formula when you guys looking for a new location? Because somebody told me, like I was meeting with one of the landlords, right? And the guy's, asking for like, $60 to $100 a square foot, in a particular location in New York. And he's like, when you're looking for a location, don't be scared of the rent. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you're not the one, working and paying the rent at the end of the month. We are. So I have to be conscious about the rent, but maybe I am, maybe I'm just overthinking.
I mean, I'm happy to answer that. I would love other people to throw in their feelings on it. But what type of business do you have? What's the franchise?
So I'm in like a fitness boxing business.
Okay.
Live boxing, yeah.
So it wouldn't have to be in a strip center next to a big anchor. It could be.
I mean, I would like to be like
Okay.
we would like to be. Is just I want to make sure that the franchisees that are buying into the franchise I want to make sure that they're like comfortable, not only paying the rent, but also, you know, having a successful business.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the rule of thumb for a restaurant, as an example, you don't want to pay more than 10% of your yearly gross in rent. You want to be between 7 and 10%. I use that structure for everything. I use that for all the gross. Now, the reason that is for the restaurant is the restaurant profit margin might be less than yours. So based on the profit margin, you don't want to be paying an exorbitant rent where now you're basically running the business to pay the rent. Someone telling a landlord telling you don't be afraid of the rent is the landlord. I mean, that's the one thing you can't change is the rent. So you can always adjust staff, you can adjust all the things you do, but you're not gonna go renegotiate the rent to lower it. So you want to make sure that you're not going to be overpaying. So if you know what a location should be generating, gross, and if you know what the net is, I would try to keep it as close to 10% as possible. I really want to be paying too much. The landlord currently
10% of the gross, yearly gross.
Well, in a restaurant, I do between 7 and 10% of the gross in a restaurant.
What's the like average restaurant gross yearly?
Yeah, it's normally the restaurant's normally 30, 30, 30, 10. So 30% of the money goes to food costs, 30% to labor, 30% to overhead, 10% in their pocket. So if you're paying more rent than you're bringing in net, obviously that's the problem.
Yeah.
So I try to keep it 7 to 10%, and again, you'll lower the food costs, you'll lower the employee costs, you'll lower the overhead. Just pieces of it that you want to lower.
Nick, we have different models, like I'm in a like a boxing business, so it's
Right.
it's a different
Right.
model. So
right. Yeah, I have gyms that are franchisors, and depending on the size of the space, some are paying 12,000 a month, some are paying 25,000 a month. All the rent, all depends on the size of the space. They base it on the revenue that they're going to generate. If you expect to get 2,000 members at $50 a member, well, okay, now you know what the revenue is. You don't want to be over 10% of that in your rent if you can avoid it. That's the way I structure it, because you'll know in the FTD what the expenses are, and you'll know as a business owner what your expenses are. The rent, again, if the rent is going to be exorbitantly high, it's going to be very hard to make the money that they're going to need to make. But what you want them to do, you want them to do well enough in the first one to open the second one.
right. Does anybody have any more input besides Nick?
Well, Alex, we are in two different industries. I'm in the coffee business, but from my experience throughout the US, everything Nick said, I relate to it. And I agree with him 100%. The 7 to 10% is a very good place to be. But sometimes when you are in a certain demographic that calls for more rent, that means there is more income. So it just depends on the demographic. If you are next to an Apple store, of course your rent is going to be higher, but your income is going to be higher. So it just depends on the location. And again, we're not talking apples and apples, because your industry is different than mine, but this is how we've been looking at it. And when someone tells you don't let rent scare you, I relate to that also 100%, because if it's higher rent, there is a reason for it. And FMS were great in confirming that aspect to us when we did our franchise with them. Actually, we're still doing it. Everything they told us just makes sense. And I'm a firm believer, and being in the ground, talking to landlords, not directly me, but my franchisees, we're noticing that all over the place, and franchisees are accepting the fact that they have to pay higher sometimes because of the area, because of demographics, and they're next to, like, I love to be next to a college, so that's probably going to be more expensive than being in other remote areas. So I agree. The rent shouldn't matter much. Yes, it does, but it shouldn't matter too much if you think that that location is going to bring you more publicity and business. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you. Nick, do we have a community where we could like ask each other questions or like clients of SMS?
Oh, you mean where the franchisors of FMS can ask each other?
Yeah, if we have like a community of a franchisors group where we could like drop questions and feed off each other's information.
Alex,
I'm
we
more-
don't. Sorry, this is Laura. Right now we don't. I mean, it's definitely a great idea for the future, but right now we don't.
Gotcha.
And
Maybe like a Slack channel or something, no?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And Nick, I think we're going to wrap it up just
Okay.
because we are approaching 1 o'clock. So do you want to say any final words?
No, I just want to thank everybody for joining in, and you have my contact information on the franchise funding sites. Anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to address them.
This website we're looking at, how
Yeah.
can we get to it? Maybe I missed it. I'm sorry.
It's called Franchise Funding Solutions.
Okay.
I can,
And Nadal, it's in the chat. There's a box on the bottom of your screen that says chat, and it opens up and we'll also share an email with everybody who's attended with the recording, as well as that will include the website and address and information to contact Nick.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Nick, Laura.
pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for joining. Our next webinar is in a few weeks on November 15th. And we have a special guest, very successful franchisor. And he has another business where he teaches on sort of the playbook on how to run a franchise. And this will give tips to the franchise or as well as franchisees. So I would definitely join that to get as much information as you can to be the best franchisor for your franchisees. So, and you'll get an email about that, but that will be on the 15th at 12 o'clock. So thank you everybody for joining, and feel free to email me if you have any further questions, and I'll get you in touch with Nick as well. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.